大家好，周四上午，比特币价格是自8月24日以来首次突破了114000美元的大关，下午又冲上了115000美元。与此同时，美国现货比特币 ETF 的资金流入也攀升至8个星期来的高位。尽管美国劳工统计局数据最新显示，过去12个月的通胀率已经升至 2.9%， 偏离了美联储设定的 2% 的理想目标，比特币仍然保持上涨的势头，似乎笃定联储下周降息一定会进一步提振市场的信心。另外，周二苹果推出新产品手机、手表和耳机。此前大家都超级担心，由于关税增加，今年 iPhone 产品价格一定 iPhone 系列新产品的价格的变化。可以看出，2011年 iPhone 的 4S 版手机美元价格是$649，比特币当时呢只是$4一个，所以需要162.5个比特币才能买到 iPhone 的 4S 版手机。而到2025年，美元价格 iPhone 17上升到$799，但是比特币来买的话，只需要0.0072个比特币就可以买到一台 iPhone 系列17的新款手机了。接下来，莱瑞亚财富管理基金创始人莱瑞亚再探讨一下联储可能即将降息的前夜，市场的信心状况和投资人应该注意的事项。
If we're talking about the rate cuts, I mean, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they're going to cut it 0.25%. However, if they feel they need to be aggressive, they will take it up to 0.5%. It's not the first time that's happened, and it usually occurs when the first cut occurs, so that's not out of the realm of possibility at this moment, but it really depends on what the Fed perceives. I mean, we've got a mixed bag of numbers, even in spite of the labor numbers, we have a mixed bag of contradicting information, and I would not underestimate the capability of the U.S. economy because we are still growing. We don't have negative growth as of yet. However, should that change, then the Fed's going to have to get more aggressive and, make more cuts, of course. If it goes to 0.5%, then it could be a boom for the market. At a time, traditionally, what you have to remember is that this time, hedge funds, mutual funds, and investors are harvesting tax losses for the year. And it usually occurs at the end of September, beginning of October. Now, there is a warning you need to put in here is that if we start seeing, and we're already seeing small signs of stagflation right now, if we're starting to see that where unemployment starts really ramping up, we saw the labor statistics that were far off, and that is not unusual. The number was unusual, but when we start seeing these type signs and we see the stagflation, then that is what I call that will put a crink into the armor, so have to be aware of these numbers, have to be prudent and strategic in your investments, either side. So keep that in mind as you go forward. We are looking at one big sector making money for the market. You talk about the Magnificent Seven, you talk about technology, AI, there's a big market out there. So don't forget, you have consumer goods, cyclicals, non-cyclicals, infrastructure plays. There's so many areas where you can make money right now that are undervalued. I mean, you just have to you have to do your homework, and you have to think who benefits not only from AI, but from other type of technologies that are out there. Is it pharmaceuticals? Is it biochemicals? So you have to kind of expand your horizons a little bit. And I think if you do, you're going to do well. I mean, I still think that infrastructure stocks are going to do well because we have not upped here in the United States, I don't, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but here in the United States, we have not updated our infrastructures, i.e., bridges, tunnels, and in quite many years. Whether it was the perception that it was too expensive or just that it was not the right time, or the legislation couldn't pass, or it was a political thing. We haven't seen that type of development occurring, and only now are we starting. The laws were passed to build more infrastructure here in the United States, but the actual execution takes years. So that's a thing to keep in mind, and the infrastructure stocks will definitely benefit from that. So that's an example of a sector that could benefit. I'm very bullish on what's going on in the market. Yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a hiccup this month and next, for the reasons I mentioned before: tax loss harvesting. If you have a winner, think of it this way: if you have a stock that's a winner at 100+%, that's what we call a gift from heaven, and we're just going to make that sale and look for other opportunities as portfolio managers. So you have to keep that in mind. I think that there's still a lot more to go with this particular market. Might start to see a cool down first quarter 26, second quarter of 26, but right for now, I don't see it unless something, like I mentioned before, dramatic happens. Even with the cuts, I think that's a positive for the market. The U.S. can restructure a lot of its debt, going forward, and we might become more attractive for countries to come back in and say, hey, you know what? We want to own these treasuries, but we want a higher yield and such. So that could be interesting. You shouldn't be getting out of the market to begin with, because if you get out, you miss out. It's like, it's not like the lottery, all right? The markets are different. The market rewards patience. If I've had several clients who, before they became clients, were losing in the market all the time, and they became clients. And part of my philosophy is discipline. You must be disciplined in your strategy. And at times they would contact me and say, I want to sell, I want to get out. And I would say, hang on, you're going to be rewarded. It's just not going to happen at this moment. And when, there's a saying here that sometimes it's darkest before the dawn, and then all of a sudden dawn comes and it's a different world. There are a lot of times you just feel like you want to get out, but if you're disciplined and you have someone like myself advising you not to get out, to hold on to the right type of holdings, you should do well. And the market has historically rewarded the patient.